All right, and welcome back to Morning Express. It's now just about 5 minutes after 7 and time for us to get into the State of the Nation. Quite a number of things have been happening. Now, State of the Nation is where we look at some of the stories that have made headlines and possibly weigh in on how they should be running. And one of the stories that we have, but before I get to the story, just a quick reintroduction for anybody that might be joining us now of the panel. To my extreme left, I have Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who is the Deputy Party Leader for ANC. Good morning and thank you for joining us and being with us. We also have Honorable Kembi Gitura, and we also have Ambrose Weda. So we're going to be weighing in on some of those stories. But one of the stories that has hit Kenya and also internationally is the translocation of more rhinos that have been suspended until investigations are done. And the translocation, possibly, this is after 8 rhinos have died. Let's see or have this story basically and hear what we have so far.
On 26th of June, wildlife conservationists embarked on a mission to provide black rhinos with a more sustainable habitat at the Tsavo National Park. Their home at the Nairobi National Park was getting crowded. 101 black rhinos resided there at the time. This was not the first time the Kenya Wildlife Service was translocating the endangered species, and the service was keen to avoid any failures.
It's very traumatizing for us because anything can go wrong.
One by one, they tracked down the members of the Big Five, sedated it before putting a chip on their bodies to ease identification and tracking. Then they were loaded into the trucks for ferrying. The translocation was to be done in batches, 8 from the Nairobi National Park and 6 from the Nakuru National Park. On that particular day, 3 rhinos were transferred from the Nairobi National Park to a newly established sanctuary inside the Tsavo Park. At the end of the exercise, 11 rhinos were relocated. On the 3rd of July, bad news struck. One of the rhinos died. 8 others died a few days later, bringing the death toll to 9. The deaths have been attributed to the saline waters in the sanctuary. The rhinos are said to have consumed a lot of water containing high levels of salt, something they were not used to.
Tsavo ecosystem has a lot of salinity, that is true, but one borehole had more salinity than required.
The cause of the deaths is not yet conclusive. Hence, the ministry has commissioned an independent investigation into the loss, whose results are expected end of next week. A geological assessment of the sanctuary had been done from 2010 to 2011, and it was discovered that there were issues of salinity, but the conservationist chose to turn a blind eye into the situation, arguing other wildlife had survived in the park. Following the incident, the 2 female surviving rhinos were removed from the sanctuary and placed into the larger park, but under high surveillance. They will reside with 15 other rhinos in the park. Of those that died, 5 were male and 4 female.
Any officer that has neglected the responsibility of protecting the endangered species will be personally held responsible.
Currently, 745 black rhinos live in Kenya, but their survival is threatened by poaching. Last year, 9 male rhinos died. From January to date, 2 adult rhinos and a calf have died. The total number of deaths this year alone is 12. The numbers undermines the several years of conservation efforts. Caroline B., KTN News.
All right, so rather tragic, especially in a time where we are trying to ensure that we conserve our wildlife and our ecosystem. Ambrose Weda, let me start with you. 9 rhinos dead, and this is translocation. And apparently, from the reports we have so far, not yet confirmed, but they may have died of salt poisoning. These are rhinos that were being translocated from one place to another, and it just seems that they were fed on water that was poisonous to them. A case of incompetence?
I think we do quite a number of things emotionally. We appoint people to places based on emotions and love and affection. We give people jobs because they're our relatives, and at no time do we assign people passion. But there are some jobs that require passion and knowledge, especially when you relocate animals, when you keep them, when you take care of them. Even if you have your cousin or sister that you'd like to give a job, there are areas you can give them a job in your kitchen or your office. But there are areas that require specialized people, people who have knowledge, or people who have been trained. So this is, in my view, a case of not only negligence, But I think lack of care. These people, they just don't bother. And the way we are, because we live with this, most of these animals, we hardly care. So when I go to KWS to be employed, I go there because I'm looking for a job, not that I'm interested in wildlife, conservation, all these things. That relocation, if you can see, it's not well thought out. They do not study the ecosystem, they do not study the behaviors of these animals. Nothing documented. That's why even KWS itself has panicked.
Wondering what to do.
What do we do?
And let me come to you, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kiro, on the question of competence and the fact that even after something like this happens, and it's the gravity of losing 9 rhinos in this day and age is huge, but may basically be played down and no heads roll, nothing happens. In another 2 months, business as usual, and that's a story that we forget all about.
Well, the issue, there are 2 factors here. The first factor is lack of proper leadership, because at times we may have so many people who are technically competent, but the problem is that they need a basic ingredient called a leadership. And that is a problem that we have in Africa. The second problem is the issue of indiscipline, because you would have expected before relocating these rhinos to check the ground about the salinity of the water and other environmental factors that would create a problem. Even for livestock, to take livestock from Nyandarua to Muranga, within the same almost ecological zone, you need to be careful because there is some kind of shock that they go through. And if there is something that scares any animal, is that kind of relocation, because they go through a lot of trauma. And any animal going through trauma can actually die of trauma. But the basic principle is lack of discipline in Africa, lack of discipline in Kenya, impunity that has pervaded our atmosphere. And that is where the problem lies. And that's why you've said rightly so, that tomorrow we forget that anything ever happened like that, and we continue as business as usual. Look at the team that won the World Cup, the one of France. You realize almost 3/4 of the players are from Africa. Why don't they win when they're in Africa? It is because we lack discipline
and systems. Honorable Kembe Gitura, your thoughts on that and the fact that we seem to have a systemic problem. It's not just the Wildlife Conservancy. We look at government, we have the same problem. Look at several sectors and you realize we have almost a common thread that runs through, a common thread in terms of a problem of leadership. How do we solve this?
I don't wish to be as judgmental as my colleague Weda on these issues because frankly I don't know. It's a very sad thing. When you read that the last white rhino in the world died not so long ago, and that we are trying to create it through the semen that was extracted from it before it died, then you understand that these people try very hard. And it is not good to be too judgmental and too, too quick to judge them. Because who would want 7 rhinos to die? It's an extremely big loss. It's tragic, actually, if you ask me. And we've been told it's salt poisoning. But as far as I'm concerned, there are no final results on the cause of these deaths. All we know is that there was a translocation. I thought it was unfortunate myself when the translocation was done, because every time I've gone to the national park, and I do that once in a long time, the last time I went there, after the gate, I saw these rhinos out there. And it was something very nice to see there. And they looked nice and comfortable. Why they decided to translocate them, I don't know. And many things are going to be said. I can see now Minister Balala is denying that it has nothing to do with privatization of these animals, etc., etc. So I know that we sometimes wait for too long to get results in this country. But this is one instance I would like to wait before I'm too judgmental, because I cannot see any wildlife conservationists being so reckless, because this would be recklessness.
And we don't want to say that they were reckless on purpose. But the fact remains that for us to lose 9 rhinos, there's got to be a big problem. There's got to be an issue of maybe foresight, maybe no. we'd expect, as the experts, they should be able to tell that we're moving them from point A to B. And by the time they're moving to point B, the environment is conducive for them to live.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that substantially. I would agree with what Honorable Kirwa has said about the trauma that an animal like this can have. And we are not quite in the mind and thinking of an animal, right? So we observe. You would expect to know what a human being is going to do. But when an animal is so traumatized, it may take you by surprise, although you've been a conservationist for a very long time. And that's why I say, and I say this sincerely, I don't want to be judgmental. I do not see any conservationist doing this kind of thing on purpose to embarrass somebody else so that these animals, so that this translocation is so that they are vindicated, that we told you. I think a mistake has happened, something very, very major has happened out here. I think it's important to know what it is, and I think this is a lesson that needs to be learned from going forward, because the 8 or 9 rhinos are not there anymore.
And they're not going to be returned. And that's a huge, huge blow to the Conservatives. But let's move on to something else, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. But a section of Rift Valley legislators have suggested plan to amend the Police Service Act to mandate the police security agencies to grant mandatory bail for suspects arrested late on Fridays as a deterrence against detention past the constitutional 24-hour window, because before being brought to court, the MPs claim police could be abusing the Friday arrest as a scheme to hold suspects longer, citing recent arrests of Kenya Power bosses. Let's listen into what they had to say.
We are treating their children and their wives to an unnecessary drama, torture, mental torture. That is an embarrassment that comes with these arrests of late is not fair at all. And that is why I will be bringing to the House an amendment to the Police Act to make sure that if you are arrested on Friday, you are given a bail and appear in court on Monday, not to be detained in court. And even if you look at this arrest, it seems like you are being arrested and then now they are going to do investigations after they have already arrested you. Let us be fair in the treatment of all those that are involved on graft, because we know there were people who were mentioned in NYS saga long time ago, season 1, and they are free. Some of them even were proud enough to say in front of a committee of parliament that they were carrying sacks of money in quarters, yet they are free. Now that people who are being suspected are being denied bail and are being arrested during weekends so that they can be locked in, you know, we see some mischief.
All right, and gentlemen, some have mentioned and said this is ridiculous for us to amend the law so that you're not arrested on Friday. Or if you're arrested on Friday, then, somehow you do not spend time in. But again, I think the bigger thing is also amending the law because of a few people. Your thoughts, Kembi Kitura?
What is happening in the country right now is very interesting, because the only reason they are talking about arrests on Fridays is because
of what happened.
High-profile people have been arrested. But I wish they know how many people are arrested, how many ordinary Kenyans are arrested on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, and every day of the week, really. I've said on this forum before, and I'll say it again, that everybody should have dignity. Even arrest should be there should be some every Kenyan, for every single Kenyan, because the freedom and liberty of a Kenyan is paramount. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you are Weda, whether you are Kipruto, Kirwa, Kembi Kitura, yourself, anybody. It should be, the parameters should be the same. But the reason everybody is now talking is because some governors, some people in Kenya Power and Lighting have been arrested. That is why it's becoming topical. But as a representative of the people, like those MPs, Sankok and the other one talking there, as people elected to represent the people, they should represent from what you consider the lowest to the highest. There should be no classes. To a member of parliament, there should be no class of people. And it's unfortunate when they talk like that. And the other trouble I see, of course, is the tribalization of all these things. Maybe if it was not somebody from their community who was arrested, maybe they'll not be talking. And Kipruto Arap Kirwa made a very important point when he was talking about the arrests in Kenya Power. The people who have been charged now. Look at it, and you see a face of Kenya. It is not It is not this community or the other community. And we must disabuse that notion in this country of saying that it's our people being persecuted. A thief is a thief, a corrupt person is a corrupt person, and whether they're your brother or your sister or cousin, and these people are people's brothers, they are people's cousins and sisters. I know some of them, the ones on this thing. Let the law take its course, and because I want to believe that the judiciary is going to do what is right now, that they're in their hands, let us wait and see what the results are going to be.
All right. Honorable Kirwa, their argument is that this arrest on Friday could be used to target certain individuals. And of course, apparently, according to them, the arrest may be on a Friday specifically to make sure that they humiliate or harass or, you know, take advantage of that to have... What are your thoughts? Are you in agreement that possibly the government agencies could use the fact that they can arrest on a Friday to harass?
Well, it comes back to the same thing. And I spend a lot of time because I've been observing society as a leader and also as a scholar. The challenge that we have as a country is that we are lynchmen. You know, you arrest somebody on Friday knowing that he doesn't have a chance to be bailed out on Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. So he has to wait up to Monday. And on Monday, he may actually stay longer, because I realize even the people in Kenya Power, some of them are still in because they have not actualized their bail terms. Now, the problem is, and the law is very clear, and I know the two lawyers do know better than I do, that anybody arrested is presumed innocent until proven otherwise. And therefore, why should you punish somebody before the punishment is really meted on him as per the law?
But how is it punishment? Because we assume that by the time they're being arrested, there is evidence enough for them to be charged.
Precisely. That's why they should be arrested on Monday. They should even be informed that you are wanted by the police on these particular terms. They will not alter the facts. If there was any problem of transformers, the transformers are already here, and they already have the facts, how they were procured, who was involved within the Kenya Power or even outside Kenya Power. And therefore, there is no substantive evidence that they are going to destroy. Inform them, let them come, and let them go through the due process. Those who are involved, let them be jailed or let the sanctions be taken after the full due process has taken place. Otherwise, we are becoming lynchmen. It's like when you lynch somebody, you become a hero. And this thing may die because of that kind of excitement.
Okay. Whether your thoughts, do you think there's a sinister move on arresting on Friday? I mean, and like Kempi Kitura rightly said, there are Kenyans being arrested on Fridays left, right, and center. Does this make it a difference because they are people in high places?
Let me tell you that the police are behaving badly and unconstitutionally. The Constitution says that when you hold an office, you'll hold it in a way that gives honor and respect to that office. Let's look at it historically. Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, Honorable William Samoei Ruto, and others were charged with crimes against humanity, rape, murder, all that. How are they treated by the ICC? That's international standards. How are they treated? Here, you find Ojamong has been arrested, he's there, then you say, also handcuff him to humiliate. It is not basically serving the cause of justice. It is frustrating. Arresting people on Friday, going to people's homes at midnight, people that you can call by text message and tell them, please report. In fact, before you are arrested, you have gone to the CID and recorded a statement. How do they reach there? They are not arrested. They just told you, we are looking for you, come. And they go there. Even there, you are told you are likely to be charged. So doing drama to frustrate, to humiliate, to embarrass people, frustrates the cause of justice. Do not forget that people like Koigi Wawamwere, people like Kanyona were kept in custody. When the trials came, it turned out it was a hoax. But some of them were in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So I think anybody trying to justify arresting people in the manner they are arresting them and holding them in the manner they are holding them, they just say so because they think they are safe. But But one day you'll be arrested of something very small, and you look at it and say, wow, this is something that could take me to the police. The purpose of the arrest is to ensure you don't run away. You can as well be told to report to court at 6 in the morning.
But then, Weda, do we then change the law for the benefit of those few? Because, like I mentioned, arrests have been taking place.
Yes.
So what about the other Kenyans who've been arrested?
Please get it. It is not changing the law for the benefit of the few. Remember, we changed the constitution to stop the police from doing this. Remember, before the police would arrest you and take it was all 24 hours, and then we had changed and wrote in the constitution, if you're arrested, within 24 hours. Then immediately, they started abusing that. The courts then decided if you're arrested and you stay in for more than 24 hours, you will be discharged. So if we could do it for the sake of the Constitution, and it has been done, and now there's a bit of order, people are sure that when you go to court, you are likely to get bail. If it is necessary to stop the police from such abuse, the law would be necessary. Today, it is them. Tomorrow, it will be you. We make the society better and better by curing things, abuses by our own people. Right. It is wrong that the police should behave the way they are behaving. Why did they have to handcuff
Ojamong?
Ojamong, sure, he is there with you. You can run, you are armed, but to humiliate, you say we have a governor today. We're going to show him that he is nobody. That kind of spirit is very bad.
All right, Honorable Kembi.
You know, I was actually looking at the Constitution. I was not looking at my messages like I'm sure some people here. I was looking at the Constitution, and Article 49 of the Constitution talks about the rights of arrested persons. So there will be no need to amend the Constitution, to amend the Police Act that they are saying, because Article 49 is quite clear on the rights of arrested persons. And it talks about the 24 hours. And if you are not taken to court within the 24 hours, then within the next shortest period possible. But it also goes on to say, and this is important, that the arrested person has the right to be released on bond or bail on reasonable conditions pending a charge or trial unless there are compelling reasons not to be so released. So this leaves a leeway. It means that if you are arrested on the Friday, the police officer arresting you, the investigative officer, the police officer arresting you, can give you bail, a bond of sorts, so that you appear before him on Monday. But I want to think that the reasoning or the thinking of the police in arresting people on Friday, I'm not condoning it, remember. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's right. But I'm saying that the law should not be made to suit a certain class of people. That's what I'm saying. On the case of Governor Ojamong, I was the first here to say that I thought it was wrong to handcuff him because, first of all, he had presented himself to the police. I remember saying that very clearly. So handcuffing him when he was not resisting arrest and when he had taken himself kujisalimisha huko, I think, in my view, maybe it was use of excessive force.
Bad taste.
But I assume that the thinking of the police in arresting on the Friday is that they have a clear 2 or 3 uninterrupted days in which they can finalize with you without you rushing to court to get bail, to be released and then interrupt.
But is that already
No, that's my thinking of what's in the police mind. I'm not saying it's that it is in my mind. I'm trying to put myself in their position. Because you see these corruption charges, my view is and has been that in the same way that the election petitions are being finalized, less than 8-9 months after elections, we should also have a deadline on corruption charges so that they are determined within, say, a given period of time. Now, if you look at the NYS one, for instance, the first NYS, the one that affected a young girl called Kabura, I saw that they were in court the day before yesterday, and because somebody didn't have documents, it was adjourned to November. Remember, it's going on already for more than 2 years. And it's going to go on, and we are going to forget there was a girl called Kabura. And then by saga. So I think we must, all of us, put ourselves also in the shoes of the police. They must act within reason. They must not handcuff Ojamong or Kembi Gitro or anybody else or that person that I represent just because I presented myself to the police because they said they needed me. And instead of running to Tanzania, I went to the police station. So I'm not a flight risk.
Okay.
These are the things I think that they must take into account, but I think we also need to put ourselves in the shoes of the police and think what is informing their decisions sometimes.
And that brings us back to the same question I had asked in regards to leadership and lack of leadership in that regard, in the sense that that officer is mandated and given powers by the state to act in a certain manner. But when they go out of that state, like Weda was saying, cuffing, a member of society, basically to create drama. What is wrong with our values? Where are we going wrong? There's something wrong in our system that needs to be sorted out.
Yes. Our value system collapsed. Our bar came so low. And the police have not come from out of the relics of the colonial mentality, where the police force was actually formed with the sole purpose of reining in the bad manners of the natives. They are still looking at us as natives, serving a certain government which is alien to us. They should know that this is our government. This is Uhuru administration, but it's our government. And therefore, we should be treated as Kenyans with decorum, whether I'm suspected to have stolen or not. And I just want to amplify what Mheshimiwa Gembe Kitura said, that we should fast track some of these cases so that if I'm guilty, then I go to jail, I serve the term, I come back and serve society. If I'm not guilty, I'm released to serve society. Otherwise, some people, if you are there for 9 years, for 3 years, the case is going on, you will look like a criminal on the run. And whenever you go to social places, I'm not saying I've been arrested, but I would imagine some of the guys, when they appear in social places, they are a bit shy because already the public has condemned them that they stole or they procured the wrong
naturally
equipment.
And also when it is splashed and done in such a dramatic way, then evidently you're left with the notion, and society is left thinking there's a criminal element. By the time you're proved innocent, the damage is already done.
And even and it will not be highlighted. When you're proven innocent, it will not be highlighted. And people will say, this guy stole from this organization.
You could see the way Koigi, our mayor, was being escorted to court when he was charged with treason. Children would be like, this is a very dangerous fellow. He would be escorted, there'll be siren, drama. Yet eventually he had raided a police post, he was armed with a gun. When everything was done, he said nothing. So let's avoid this drama. And whoever tries to support that kind of drama, because maybe it's Kassim's government, these things keep on hitting us. And people have paid a price for this freedom. The price will continue to be paid until we can also be treated the way Honorable Uhuru and Honorable Ruto were treated when they went to Hague. They were in good hotels, they did well, they did their cases, and they came back and we elected them and they're there. Now, surely if you're charged with this and that, and they want to kick you all over, that is not a good, decent society we are looking for.
I think Weda needs to be reminded that even as the president and the deputy were in The Hague, they were on bond, right? He must be reminded that that Beba of Congo, who was acquitted recently, did his case and served a term when he was already in the prison, in the cells of The Hague. So it's not that bail is not automatic. This is something that Kenyans need to be told. Bail bond is not automatic. It's at the discretion of the magistrate, the one upon whom the application is brought. And the magistrate decides on the facts of the case, whether to grant bail or not to grant bail. And also to give the amount of bail to be given. We don't know how Beba was treated when he was behind bars in The Hague.
Our own people.
I think it's also not good. I think it's not good to mislead Kenyans. I think it's good to face them with the facts of every single case. And I will end by saying that dignity that must be given to accused or charged persons must be given to every Kenyan, regardless of their station in life.
Absolutely. That's the point I was trying to. All right, and I want us now to move on to something else, and it's a subject that you started off earlier on, but we didn't finish, and it's the question of NASA's life. And we have the deputy party leader here. Your party leader is on record as saying that NASA is my brainchild, and I am determined to ensure it remains intact. And NASA as an outfit, NASA as a coalition, may be there on paper, but let's face it, NASA as a force is no longer there.
Well, just like all political parties, they never mobilize beyond the election time. And just like all political parties in Africa, they were formed on the eve of elections or at independence. And after independence, even some of them were killed. There were coups, counter-coups. And subsequent to that, it is when there was clamor for the second liberation, engendered by the Cold War collapse, the end of the Cold War, that political parties came again into action. In Africa, we do not have the culture of political parties. We pretend. These are vessels that we use them to win elections. And in between, they are not in existence. NASA, yes, may be a moribund idea as of now. But I'm very convinced if 3 parties pull out of NASA, other parties can come in and we can engage them on other terms. It is a brainchild of my party leader. I strongly believe NASA was something that was going to form as a coalition and subsequently foment into a political entity so that we have 2 or 3 political parties in Kenya.
Isn't that rather disappointing for Kenyans to know that as any other party, that NASA was also what they call an SPV, special political vehicle, where once the elections are done, what happens to the things that NASA stood for? Graft, inclusivity, electoral injustice. What happens to all those if it's only there for the election time, and after that, then let's disband
Michael, understand, I'm here on two hats. One, I'm the deputy party leader of ANC, correct, and I'm also analyzing the situation insofar as Africa and Kenya is concerned, as a scholar. And therefore, I'm giving you a scholarly advice that political parties in Africa are vehicles for purposes of winning elections.
So after the elections,
they are moribund in between.
So can we then say that NASA is no longer in existence now that the elections are over?
No, you see, you cannot use it just to selectively pinpoint on NASA. I'm saying this period is a moribund period. You don't hear a lot of Jubilee parties unless they're in trouble. Otherwise, in between, all these parties are moribund. They are in dormancy. And it's on the eve of elections that we'll also be able to judge the character of Jubilee, whether it is going to be split into URP and whatever, and TNA. Yes. I've said it before, that there is going to be a new configuration on the eve of the next election. Of the elections.
Honorable Kembe Gitura, you agree that political parties are basically special purpose vehicles for elections, and after that, really, because that also speaks to the fact that they do not have ideology that drives them. Because we would imagine that even after elections, their ideology should remain intact. They should have causes that they are following after and should not back down just by virtue of the fact that the elections are gone.
You see, the trouble is that ideologies a lot of time come with strong personalities, and when those personalities are no longer there, they tend to be changed. The African National Congress of Nelson Mandela and Sisulu and all those other, Sobukwe and others that was there when they founded it so many years ago in South Africa, has remained for quite some time. But if you look at the ANC now, you see it slowly disintegrating. You see that some people have moved to other smaller parties, and by the time we come to the next elections, we may find a lot of fractious situation in South Africa. If you go to Chama cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania, Tanganyika as it was then, and then Tanzania, the thinking of Julius Nyerere before independence was such that there should be no tribal parties, no tribalism, and he created a big party called Chama cha Mapinduzi, the CCM. Is it CCM or TANU?
It was TANU.
It was TANU.
Yeah, before the merger with
it was TANU before they merged.
Yeah.
And it worked for a very long time until even currently you find that in Tanzania, it doesn't matter very much which tribe you come from to be elected a president. If you look at KANU, coming all the way from KAU in Kenya to transforming to KANU, again you find that it was a very large grassroots party, because at the time we got independence, the issue of tribalism wasn't there. Yeah, it wasn't there. That is why you found Mzee Raila saying that Mzee Jaramogi Oginga saying we are not going to form a government until Mzee Kenyatta is out of detention, because they are looking at one nation. But KANU has continuously disintegrated. Sorry?
Carry on.
KANU has continuously disintegrated because as we have moved on, the ideology that was there pre-independence is no longer there, and we have moved more to a more fragmented country along tribal lines. So even NASA, what Kipruto Kirwa is saying, yes, NASA, maybe the thinking was good. It was more like what Jubilee had thought when it brought all those small parties together so that you could have a large movement. And maybe that is what should be sustained as much as possible. Is it going to happen? Or is it not going to happen? I think that is the question that we must continue to deal with as we move towards creating... And I've said on this floor again that democracy is always work in progress. It can never be a finished product. So we are going to continue to see how we can build stronger parties, to create more, stronger democratic institutions as we go along. I think the tragedy would be if we are moving backwards instead of moving towards the goal that we desire to achieve in due course.
All right, Ambrose Weda, do you think NASA is a dead horse? And not just NASA. Yes. Let's be fair and just look at political parties in general as special purpose vehicles that basically should be disbanded and remain on paper until time for elections.
I think NASA is paralyzed because the heart has moved out. The heart, the 60%, 70% shareholder, Honorable Raila, has moved out. He one time announced that he's moved on, and he's moved on to the people's president. That time he excluded the NASA partners. And now he has moved on to work together with Uhuru. Again, he has he has left out this. So NASA essentially, as a movement, is paralyzed. NASA as a name in the hands of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi and my big brother Kirwa is there. The way we look at it, NASA will be buried unless the owners do not want to bury it. The trend is in this country, if you look at the history of Honorable Raila, he first contested presidency on NDP, then he went to ODM, then he went to CORD, now NASA. If you take President Uhuru, he started with KANU, then TNA, then Jubilee. So it is only the Honorable Wetangula and maybe Honorable Musalia that insist on the old jalopy as they go for elections. These others know that it is time for V8 or V10, and they are quiet. And TNA was very strong, but the president and the people realized now we need a V8. They went for Jubilee. CORD was very strong and corded the whole area. Honorable Raila needed a V8, so they went to NASA. So those of us, those of you who are still insisting on the old jalopy to keep on galloping, you find Honorable Wetangula is busy with the Ford Kenya, Sijui, the one Jaramogi started, Ford Kenya, Simba. The people who were born when Jaramogi died, they do not understand Simba. They understand in terms of the rhinos which are dead. They understand new things. So they need to cope. The NASA people, please copy from your principles, Honorable Uhuru and Honorable Raila, and you see that you acquire new vehicles for you to acquire power. If you stick to the old ones, NASA is dying and it will be buried. Please shift off and come to new. Join President Uhuru so that a new thing is formed and you get power.
All right, I want us to finish off with your closing comments very briefly. Kipruto Arap Kiro, I'll start with you. And the question that I'd like you to answer for the sake of Kenyans is, where is their interest in all this? It looks like special purpose vehicles are mainly vehicles that are used by politicians for politicians. Where is Wanjiku in all this? As you close.
One, we just need to expand the political realm to include the people of Kenya by ensuring there is democracy inside these political parties, and also there is democratic interface among the parties, so that the interplay of parties is in a democratic way, respect, and a high sense of decorum. That's the only way we can say we are building parties akin to the parties elsewhere in the world. Otherwise, what we are doing is that we are creating personal, special purpose vehicles for purposes of winning elections and galvanizing our communities.
All right. Honorable Kembi Gitura, your closing comments?
On the same issue, political parties are important. That's the position that I take. But we must change their thinking. They must have an ideology. And if you look at, a lot of time, you look at the manifesto, for instance, of ODM, you look at the manifesto, for instance, of TNA, they're essentially the same. They're talking about the same things they want to do for this country. And this is what should matter. That ideology, that thinking, what is in a manifesto, what do we need to do for our people, not for ourselves. That is what should be the thinking. So it's not how much you write or talk, it's what you do, that the Wanjiku that you're talking about can see. What does Wanjiku want? Wanjiku is actually a pretty simple, not simplistic, but a pretty simple person. All they want is peace, security, food on the table, education for their children, good health, and all those things. Wanjiku wants to know that if sugar is brought to Murang'a and it comes to the shop, it is safe for human consumption.
Right.
Wanjiku wants to be assured. Wanjiku doesn't want to have, she doesn't know where KEBS is, for instance. She doesn't even know about the government chemist. She doesn't know those things. All she wants to know is that I have a government, elected people, that we have a president, we have a member of parliament, we have a senator, we have all these people, and therefore the sugar. She's surprised when she's told sugar has mercury because she doesn't expect that to happen. So I think we must keep our promises. We must keep the promises we made to our people. And more importantly, I think we must stop politicking 24/7.
All right.
I think it is too early to start politicking about 2022. I think Wanjiku deserves to get a fulfillment of the promises that she was given in 2017.
All right, Empress Weda, very briefly, in 30
Political
seconds, please.
organizations, they are basically organizations. Wanjiku has the card. It is Wanjiku that can make a change. Wanjiku should be voting for individuals, not parties, not people. They vote for policies, ability, known record. But as long as we still vote for parties, then they are abandoned, and then Wanjiku is left there hanging. So it is upon the voter to decide what kind of leadership they want. And they vote not based on tribe, not based on party, but based on ability and performance.
All right, we'll tie it up right there. Thank you very much. Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. We have Honorable Kembe Gitura, former Senator, Murang'a County, and Honorable Kipruto Rapkira, Deputy Party Leader, ANC. That's the State of the Nation. It's now 15 minutes to 8. We want to take a short break, but do stay with us right here on Morning Express. We have more stories making headlines also lined up for you. Tech Central coming up not too long from now.
This is KTN News.